Number 58. Stars are near. The Quran's author thought that stars were very close to us, right here in the heaven above us, in the nearest heaven. This is a myth about 7 heavens, where the stars are in the closest heaven. Gladly, in a separate report, we are told how thick one heaven is. One heaven has the thickness of 500 years of marching. Marching like this, apparently. Now, the closest star to us is about 4.3 light years away, which is... just forget it. By marching speed, you would only reach a tiny fraction of that in 500 years, and this is the closest star, which means stars are not in some nearest heaven, as described by Allah. There would be so many more of those heavens until we only reach the closest star, and there are millions of stars much further away. The Quran imagines stars to be somewhere up here, and the moon in the midst of them. That's what you see when you look up to the sky at night, and you are in the desert of the 7th century. Number 51. The sun and the moon can't overtake each other. Since the moon and the sun follow each other according to the Quran, it also says they can't overtake each other. But in reality, the sun and the moon move independently from each other, and the moon can occasionally get between the sun and us. And we call this a solar eclipse. When an eclipse happened in Muhammad's lifetime, he prayed for a long time. He was scared, and then told his people that this was a sign from Allah, that Allah does that to scare humans, and that we should pray when it happens. Because the Quran says it can't happen, but suddenly it happens. This is still believed to be true in fundamentalist Muslim circles. Number 50. The sun and the moon will join. But the Quran teaches us that the sun and the moon will join one day, at the end of time. That's a very weird thing to say, because even if the moon was hypothetically shot out of the Earth's orbit, it would take a long time for the moon to reach the sun. The moon would probably burn and be destroyed before it could possibly collide with the sun. But even if it did, it would be to the sun like a fly colliding with us. It wouldn't be important to the sun at all. The moon would be destroyed immediately, and most importantly, we would probably not see it at all. The Quran imagines it to look like this, when the sun and the moon join. Number 49. The moon will darken. The Quran also tells us that the moon will darken before it joins the sun. Someone should tell the eternal author of the Quran that the moon is already dark, by default. It only becomes bright because the sun shines on it, and the sunlight reflects off the surface of the moon, which gives us light at night. Moreover, if the moon was moving toward the sun, considering that this verse comes before the verse which says the two would join, then the moon wouldn't go dark. It would be even brighter, because its light is the sunlight, and for a while we would see that brightness slowly fading away, and it would be extremely bright before its collision. But we would never see that. The Quran is absolutely wrong. Because, number 48, the moon is a light. According to the Quran, Allah made the sun a torch and the moon a light, and the moon will go dark. The author of the Quran didn't know that the moon doesn't have its own light, that the moon is only brightened by the sun which shines on it, just like our planet Earth, which is only bright and has day when the sun shines on it. Otherwise the Earth is dark. Likewise, the moon is by default dark. This is a disastrous error in the Quran. Number 47. The moon was split in two. And yes, the moon was split in two. This could also be included in historical mistakes. But the Quran tells us that the moon was split in two, and this was a sign of the end of time to come. Funny, it's been 1,400 years and we haven't seen the end of the world yet. The moon was also never split in two. Such an event would have been seen almost in the entire known world, and yet no one ever, not even the Romans, Persians, Chinese or Indians, civilizations that were very good at writing things down, reported any such outstandingly amazing event. They all just ignored it. The moon was split in two, but they thought, who cares? The only source we have is Islam. Some Muslims even have claimed that NASA took photos of the moon and saw a rift which proves this miracle, but NASA respectfully debunked this by showing us more riles and saying that you shouldn't believe everything you read online. Number 46. The night rapidly chases the day. The Quran says that the night covers the day, and the day the night, which is horribly described, and we'll come to that in a second, but it further says that the night and the day chase each other rapidly. The Quran says that because that's the case in Arabia. In Iceland, you won't remotely have the same thing. It will look like the night really takes its time. In Tromsø, Norway, the night is gone for 2 months. Doesn't look rapid at all. Number 45. Night and day are entities that enter each other. The Quran weirdly says that night and day are entities that go into each other, that enter each other. The night is darkness. Darkness is default because we can't see the sunlight and we see space with our bare eyes, and we call this night. The sun, which is again running in this verse, simply appears to us when we face it and gives us sunlight, which we choose to call day. There is nothing entering each other or mixing into each other here, just the sun appearing and disappearing. Number 44. The night covers the day. Let's look at this again in another verse. Chapter 13 verse 3 tells us that the night comes and covers the day, causing the day to go away. Seriously, let's read the verse. And it is he who spread the earth, and placed therein firmly set mountains and rivers, and from all of the fruits he made therein 2 mates. He causes the night to cover the day. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who give thought. There is so much to say here, but we'll come to that. The Quran verse in every translation says that the night covers the day. Imagine this as a veil, the night covering the day and causing the world to go dark. Of course, a 7th century person in the desert of Arabia would imagine it that way, but it is pretty common sense, not even common sense, it is reality, that night and day are just results of the sun's presence and absence. If we are exposed to the sun, it is bright, and we call that day. If the sun is out of sight, it becomes dark, which is the norm, because we are now without sunlight, and just face outer space directly, and we call this time night. The night is not a fascinating phenomenon, not an object, not something special, not a veil. It doesn't look like this. Number 43. Day, night, sun and moon. You might have noticed by now that the Quran can't properly explain day, night, sun and moon. The Quran thinks that day and sun are 2 separate things. It clearly says that the day reveals the brightness of the sun, when the brightness of the sun is actually what causes the day, daylight. Look at the wording. By the day, when it displays the sun, and the night when it covers the sun. The night is an object going by the Quran, as explained in the previous point, and the night comes and makes the sun go away. And the sun just sticks around during daytime. The Quran even tells us that Allah created the day, and the night was made for rest, and that the moon and the sun were only made for calculation, not because the sun is actually necessary in order to have that daylight that we call day. The Quran really doesn't know that day and night are consequences of the sun's absence and presence as our planet spins. Number 42. The rising place of the sun. On top of all that, another verse talks of a place where the sun rises. Yes, the Quran believes in a literal rising of the sun. See how it describes that the sun was rising on a people who had no shelter against the sun, because the sun was so close, because it was the rising place. When you read the Quran through, you don't even properly pay attention to this. If you think about this verse for a second, you'll think, wait, what? But I wonder what else the sun does. Number 41. The sun has a resting place.